This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening. Welcome to the Easthampton City Council meeting for Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. The meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast by eMedia on Charter Channel 193 and live streaming on the webpage easthamptonmedia.org. Councilors and participants in this meeting are gathering hybrid on the order extended until March 2025, allowing us to do so. I remind both members of the City Council and the public participating remotely to remain muted until recognized by the City Council President. Also, for the members of the public, please remove your camera for the duration of the meeting unless you are participating in public speak time
or the public hearing. Thank you. This meeting is now called to order.
Ted Koenig? Here. Connie Denham? Here. Salem Derby?
Present.
Felicia Jacek? J.D. Kaczynski?
Here.
Tom Peake?
Here.
Brad Riley? Tamer Smith?
Here.
And J.T. Terrell?
Here.
Okay, if everybody would join me in a brief moment of silence. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will work to it.
Okay, we have one set of minutes from March 5th to approve. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the March 5th minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstentions? Motion passes. So now it seems that we have, Chief Norris is here, and I know that we have a presentation on the hazard mitigation plan. I'm going to see if we can find the consultant to it.
And it might get her Robin or Elizabeth.
Okay. Yep, I see Robin shaking her head, so let me see if I can add Robin as a co-host. And I have done so. Hopefully that has worked. Yes. So Robin, you should be able to share your screen.
All right, Robin, good evening, Robin. Can you hear us okay?
Very, very quietly.
Yeah,
that
your
might be-
audio's low.
Yeah,
Is it on here?
yeah, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, see how it's like all the way down?
This one?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Robin, try that again.
How about now?
Oh, perfect.
Oh,
Thanks, Tom.
beautiful.
Do you
Wow.
actually
Technology.
mind making the co-presenter, who's going to share her screen?
Sure thing. Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Yep. And you should be a co-host now as well.
All right, so thank you, everyone, number one, for allowing us to do a quick, brief presentation tonight. As they're pulling the screen up, just give people a brief overview. Tonight we're here to engage the community and do a presentation on the citywide hazard mitigation plan. This hazard mitigation plan is supposed to be updated every 5 years for every municipality across the state. One of the many reasons that this is required at the federal level is for all of your federal reimbursements for grants hinge upon the community having this updated plan that's done every 5 years. In addition to that financial component, the purpose of this hazard mitigation plan is to identify any vulnerabilities throughout the community, resources that are needed, and things of that nature to help prepare you to be a more resilient community in the event your community is faced with any natural man-made disasters. So that's kind of that broad 30,000-foot overview as to the purpose of this plan. Certainly tonight we want to give you that brief overview, let people understand what it's about, and we'll leave you contact information to provide feedback as we move this forward through the process. So are you guys all set to present that? Okay, so thumbs up. All right, I'm going to step away and I'll have you take it over.
Okay. Can you guys see the screen with the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Amazing, thank you. So hi, I'm Elizabeth Sufa. I'm a resiliency planner with Weston and Sampson. Robin, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Robin Seidel. I'm the resiliency team leader at Weston and Sampson. I've also worked on your climate action plan for the city.
Thanks. And yeah, tonight we're here just to talk about the natural hazard mitigation plan and just kind of give a brief overview of what that process looks like. Okay, so the agenda, really just, we already did a brief introductions and now we're just gonna go into that overview. So first we're gonna talk about what is hazard mitigation, and that's really just reducing impacts from natural hazards through planning, different projects, services, etc. And then what is the value of hazard mitigation plan? What's the point of it? So it really brings a lot of great benefits for communities. It allows the community to be eligible for certain grants. It allows for more equitable outcomes. It allows the city just to be prepared in general. We're building consensus for different actions and different implementation of hazard mitigation planning, and it really just protects health and safety for all. The graphic on the screen shows that every $1 spent on mitigation saves $6 on disaster recovery. So you're really making an investment now for your community to hopefully not face a lot of destruction if a natural hazard event were to occur. And so what does this plan do? So we really just look at different natural hazards such as wildfires, tornadoes, etc. We determine the risk. So what does that look like for the community? How do wildfires, do they impact Easthampton, for example? And then we look at what could the potential impacts from those hazards be, and then we develop goals and strategies to basically reduce long-term risk or vulnerability based on the prior assessment of the hazards and the vulnerability. And in 2023, FEMA came out with new requirements for hazard mitigation planning. So that includes ensuring participation in the planning process. Now there's a consideration of climate change, which we'll see a little bit later when we talk about hazards. Recognizing the role of adopting and enforcing building, land use, and development codes. So really looking at zoning, how does future development of the community impact their vulnerability to different hazards? And then facilitating stronger alignment with FEMA mitigation programs. And who is involved in this process? The city is obviously involved. We have a city representative, Chief Norris, who's kind of in charge of moving this process along and providing lots of feedback and making some of the final planning decisions. There's also a hazard mitigation planning community, which consists of a variety of stakeholders from different backgrounds. It could be a community, it could be city departments, or it could be community organizations, just different groups so that we can really get the full scope of what the hazards are and get feedback on different actions. And then the public is also involved in this process. One way that the public is involved is through education, such as this meeting, but there's also a public survey, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then also the public can comment on the draft, which will, once it's finalized, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. So this next slide really shows the process of the hazard mitigation plan and what chapters you can expect to see in the plan. So we start with an introduction. Then we talk about a little bit about the planning process, such as when the meetings occurred, who's been involved. We go and we look at different community assets, and we look at the hazards, and then we look at, the different capabilities that the city has to move hazard mitigation planning along. So example, what plans can support hazard mitigation? What are the staff capabilities? Etc. And then we kind of go into mitigation goals and actions. And then after that, we look at how is the plan going to be maintained? How is it going to be implemented? Who's in charge of that? And then we look at adopting. There will be a plan adoption chapter, which is really important at the end. And then an appendix that will have more information. And so to talk a little bit more about what the hazard profiles look like, here on the screen there's about 12 hazards listed. And really this is just the full scope of what type of hazards Easthampton potentially face. There may be some that aren't really, they're very unlikely, but there are some that will have greater impacts than others. And so when we look at these different hazards, which are also seen in the state hazard mitigation plan, we really take a focus on connecting it with that. We look at where each hazard might affect the planning area. So that could be what areas of the city face flooding, extent, potential intensities. So how bad can this hazard be? So for example, a hurricane, is it a Category 4 hurricane? Category 2, previous occurrences, where has flooding occurred? How many times have hurricanes happened in the past? And then future probability, how likely are these to occur in the future? And that's kind of where that climate change component comes in. And then there are 2 new hazards to consider from the Resilient Mass Plan, which is the State Hazard Mitigation Plan. That's changes in groundwater and other severe weather. Changes in groundwater really just looks at increases in groundwater levels, groundwater resource depletion, and contamination of groundwater, which really affects people's drinking water potentially. And then other severe weather is really just kind of high winds, thunderstorms, your more kind of basic storms that you would see probably on a day-to-day basis that include a lot of rain. And those were in the 2016 HMP, they're just kind of under a new category now. And so earlier I briefly mentioned that there was a community survey. We've gotten 53 responses so far, and which is awesome. And so you can see in the word cloud, some pretty typical concerns: flooding, tornadoes, power, and then the top hazards that we identified from that survey so far: just changes in groundwater, drought, flooding from precipitation, and extreme temperatures. So I really think those are pretty fairly common concerns. And so another step is to look at the community assets. We kind of group these into 5 categories: people, which include underserved communities. We look at structures, which are buildings, critical assets, systems, which include water, wastewater systems, cultural, historic, and natural assets. We're talking about parks, any historic buildings. And also we look at economic assets as well, and activities that really just have value to the community. And those can also be just kind of like, oh, there's a farmer's market that's important to the community. And so the vulnerability assessment, this is kind of where the mitigation actions address the vulnerability. So we look at hazards times the assets. So looking at what is affected and how it might be affected by different hazards at different levels. And then we also look at the town's capabilities, or these capabilities. So we look at planning mechanisms, funding mechanisms, administrative capacity. So kind of like staff capacity, staff training, education, and outreach. How does the city reach the community and during times of disaster, and existing mitigation measures, usually ones that were in the past HMP as well. And then some of the we also look at, what can be improved, like how can capabilities be expanded upon. And then that really leads us into the mitigation actions. So these can be part of a wide variety of different types of categories. They can be technical, political, legal, a bunch of different types. But the one caveat is there has to be at least one mitigation action for each of the natural hazards. So there has to be one that addresses invasive species. There has to be one that addresses drought, etc. And then earlier I also mentioned that there will be a public review of the draft, and this will just look like a draft HMP will be posted on the website for public comment. There'll probably be a survey. You can look at different parts of the draft and just see what you decide you want to comment on. And then after that comment period, the draft plan will be finalized, which is important for the next step where we send it to MEMA and FEMA for approval. So after the draft plan is done, we submit it to MEMA, and then MEMA will respond with comments. We address those comments, and then we submit to FEMA for approval. Sometimes there may be comments, sometimes there won't. Hopefully there won't be. And then the town or the city can adopt it after FEMA approves it. And this is a really important step, that the plan is adopted and approved so that the city can be approved for funding. And so, yeah, that was just our brief overview of hazard mitigation planning. Robin, please feel free to add anything that you think I might have missed. And there's still time to take the survey that we mentioned earlier. So there's a QR code and a link on the screen. And then, yeah, Robin, sorry.
No, that's it. I was just gonna further enforce, we're still looking for folks to participate in the survey. And then if you have ideas of projects, please reach out and email Chief Norris and he'll get those to us for us to consider in the plan. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, on behalf of Easthampton, thank you for your work so far and presenting that tonight. And again, the purpose of tonight was just to provide another venue for the public to, number one, understand the process, start to understand the plan, and certainly provide any feedback. As you heard, 2 surveys have already been submitted to the community. We're looking for more input, and we wanted to do this public presentation tonight as just another method to get the information out there. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know it's a huge agenda tonight.
Yeah.
Is there any questions I can answer as we close this up?
I just have one, which is, do you know if the survey is currently on the Easthampton website? And if not, is that something that we can do before it closes so we can get more?
After tonight, we can go and put it back up on the city website again. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be good. So, any other questions, comments?
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Chief.
you all for everyone's time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so it is 6:16, so I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing. And we'll do public speak after the public hearing because we're scheduled at 6:15. Yep.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, against, abstained. We are open. Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. This should be a short one. As you all know, we quarterly need to approve an appropriation of the money coming from the PEG access account so that the money that the city receives from cable TV fees from Spectrum can then go to Easthampton Media. We do this every quarter. It's just a procedural thing that we have to do. This time it's $46,120.34. Maybe there's someone from the public who's curious about the process, but we do this quarterly, so I don't really have much else to report on it.
Any councilors have any questions? Anybody from the public have any questions or comments about this? Okay, seeing none, Councilor Peak.
Okay, I'll make the following request in the form of a motion. A request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $46,120.34 to be transferred from PEG access account to be transferred to PEG access account. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to give approval to spend from the PEG access receipts reserved account for cable-related purposes consistent with the franchise agreement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions are against, motion passes. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that brings us to public comment. So tonight's public comment, please, if you have anything that you would like to address to the council, you can step to the podium, as long as it's not about our legendary city clerk. You're gonna have to wait till later for that. But if you have anything else that you would like to speak to, please step to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. Just state your name and address for the record and address the councilors.
Doug Friedman, you there? Doug Friedman? read something. I just talk loud?
Yeah.
Deb Friedman, 9 Chapman Ave. I'm just want to give a very quick support, and I have to read this thing, it's long, for the resolution that has been proposed in support of an act enabling cities and towns to stabilize rents and protect tenants, which, as I understand it, means to reverse basically the preemption of rent controls and so on that was put into effect in 1994. It was a referendum, and it won by 51 to 49, so not by a whole lot. 30 years ago, and things have changed since then, and we all know, I know everyone who knows about the housing crisis nationally and in Easthampton particularly, and there's no reason not to revisit this and to make this more useful to Easthampton residents. I really encourage you to vote on this tonight and get this passed so that, what we have now are the private equity has moved in everywhere, and we're suffering from that, and we need to do something about it. So please support this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next. Just state your name and address for the record.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jackie Schneer, and I live in the Pleasant View Apartments on Nashawanick Street. I have lived here for almost 2.5 years. I moved in when my son's father and I separated. He also lives in Easthampton, and it was important for me to live close to him as we share custody of our son, who is only 5. Right before Thanksgiving, some of my neighbors and I received a notice taped to our doors from a by-the-way property management informing us of a $400 rent increase to start February 1st. My rent was going to go from $11.50 to $15.50, and if I didn't sign the lease by December 4th, it would have been an increase of $600, making that $17.50. I signed the lease under duress since the holiday season is the busiest time of the year at the post office where I work full-time. I would have had to move out by January 1st when my lease was up or be evicted, and I couldn't imagine finding another affordable place to live. I've had to take a good look at my finances and make changes in my life in order to barely afford this current rent increase. I recently completed a first-time homebuyer's course and was hoping to be able to save money for a home. However, a $400 more a month on rent is making that dream a very hard reality. And if I'm still living here when my lease is up, I am afraid of another drastic rent increase, because then I would not be able to afford to live here. I am here to ask that the City Council take positive action on the proposed resolution regarding rent stabilization, House Bill 2501 and Senate Bill 1084. This bill would allow cities and towns to enforce fair and predictable maximum rent increases. It would make Massachusetts and Easthampton less vulnerable to profit-seeking investors and prevent profit-driven displacement. Thank you.
Hi there, good evening. My name's Nancy Dorian, and I also reside at 22 Nashawanick Street. On November 17th, our complex was bought by an out-of-state buyer, an LLC. On November 18th, right before the holidays, and in the dead of winter, the new management company, A Better Way, taped a letter to our doors informing us of a rental increase of 35%, $400, with 12 business days at this time of year to sign. If it wasn't signed before or on December 4th, a notice to quit would be issued with an invitation to sign at a higher rate of 50%, $600. Obviously, I signed under duress. The new management company has repeatedly proven incapable of handling snow removal in a safe and timely manner, oftentimes not showing up until 24 hours after the storm, leaving us with frozen slush because it freezes. Several of us have already fallen. I am one of them. We're a mix of elderly, working adults, and folks with kids who deserve a safe and affordable place to live. I myself am an artist, and I grew my business here over the last 20 years. I was at Eastworks and many stores around the Main Street area that is an attraction. I helped to make this town a more desirable place to live, and now I'm getting squeezed out. This is a clear example why Easthampton needs rent stabilization to keep rents in line with inflation. Just inflation. A 5% cap would go a long way to keeping our community a beautiful place to live for all of us, not just the well-to-do. Thank you for considering this. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick McCarthy. Excuse me. I've been a resident of Easthampton for the past 10 years. I currently live on Everett Street with my wife Mary this summer. I'm here today because I wanted to discuss the removal of the waste receptacles on Cottage Street. It's created a real mess. I don't think anyone here likes seeing trash overflowing or blowing down the street or just dumped on the sidewalk. And it hurts our businesses, it's bad for our environment, and it makes Easthampton look like we don't care. I think we should care. I care. I think most of you care about our town. That's why we're all here today. And I understand there were probably reasons, valid ones, why they got removed. Maybe they were overflowing. Maybe the maintenance was an issue. Maybe there was pests. Maybe all of the above. But taking them away entirely feels like a miss and not the solution that any of us were hoping for. So I'm not just here to complain without a solution. I'm proposing a solution that we fix it with solar compactors, and particularly ones that were designed and built here in Massachusetts by a company called Big Belly. You've probably seen these in larger cities, but they're also in smaller municipalities and universities. Each one can hold the equivalent of between 5 and 10 bins. So that means less frequent pickups, which would save money and resources and reduces the strain on our town. They're not just trash cans. These are smart bins that have recycling components. They can be hooked up to a cloud-based software that can tell the level of them, so you don't have to constantly check how full they are. You can just check it remotely. And, essentially this would result in cleaner streets, less waste, more efficient pickups. We're supporting a regional-based business. So it feels like a pretty great solution. And I actually took the liberty of reaching out to Big Belly today in between work, just trying to get a hold of someone to get a little more information. So I was able to speak with their Western Mass rep, Drew Didrikson, who I can link up whoever would be the DRI here for this, and I'll be happy to give you his email and phone number. Essentially, the units I'm talking about are $4,200 a piece. The cloud software is $550 for a 5-year subscription. Anybody that knows software prices, that's extremely cheap. And if we can find it in our budget to lease 10 electric vehicles for the police and fire department for $106,000 and purchase a dump truck for over $250,000, I don't really see a reason why the city cannot allocate the funds necessary to implement this project. And in closing, we need the trash cans back, but we need to do it in the right way. We need a solution that works for everyone, and I'm confident that this is the right solution. So let's make Cottage Street clean and welcome again. Let's make Easthampton proud.
Thank you.
Hello, Carol Cushing, Main Street, Precinct 4. And I am coming here today to support the resolution for rent stabilization and protection of tenants. I've been coming to meetings for many years, and we've been talking about what a problem it is, and the resolution lays out many of the clearly making the case that we need it. And I'm coming here, I'm a landlord, I have a tenant. I could raise their rent to anything I want that I could get with the market, and that's not fair. The government has a role to play in helping us as a community and a group of people negotiate and maneuver how we live together and the constraints that we have. And it's a critical issue to have affordable housing, to have a healthy community and people able to live here. And so, and we know this, you all are talking about it and working on solutions. And so I hope you would just pass this quickly tonight and communicate to our legislators. Some of whom are here, so getting the message. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mercedes. I'm a community organizer with Springfield No One Leaves. Massachusetts is facing a severe affordable housing crisis with skyrocketing rents, forcing families, seniors, and young professionals out of their communities. More than half of residents spend over a third of their income on housing, and many are priced out entirely. Recently, Pleasant View Apartments were bought by an out-of-state LLC, resulting in rent hikes of up to 50%, and that's like a clear example of the urgent need for action. Housing is a human right, and that's why we need House Bill HD 2501 and Senate Bill SD 1084, which would allow cities and towns to stabilize rents and cap annual increases at 5%. This is a crucial step in preventing predatory rent hikes that displace residents. We urge you to support the resolution backing these bills. Let's stand up for renters and bring fairness and stability to Massachusetts' housing market.
Hey everybody, Omar Gomez, 14 Clark Avenue. I just want to probably make your job a little easier tonight. I already co-sponsored that bill, 2501. That bill, it will give you the opportunity to opt in to that to rent control. If we pass it at the state level, then it's coming back, and then you have to opt in. It's not that it's going to be effective immediately. And one of the options is that you can ask the voters to do it. That's part of the bill. You're going to have different ways to implement this at the city level. On top of that, the city have to do a report every year. It's not that it's going to implement it, and the state is not going to follow up. I'm going to make it super simple. That resolution is supposed to send it to me. I'm already co-sponsor of that bill. So maybe that will make your decision easier tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Donna Chapallo. I'm at 116 Pleasant Street. I'm also a member of the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership, although I'm here in my personal capacity tonight. And I'm here in support of HD 2501 and SD 1084. I'm not going to repeat, but I agree with all of the things that have previously been said in support of this measure. And as I listened to the stories, I found them to be quite heartbreaking. My story is a little bit different. I lived in Boston for 13 years in a rented apartment, and my rent was actually stable. It never went up until 13 years when my kids had already graduated from high school and were well into college. That stabilization gave myself, my husband, and my family some economic security that we could count on in order to plan our finances, to be able to afford the things that we needed for our family, to stay in the home that we had and make it our home, and be able to plan for our children's future in terms of colleges and being able to support them. So I think that this is an important initiative. I hope that you will support it and send this resolution to the state. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Joel Feldman. I live in Northampton, and I'm an attorney in Springfield who represents low and moderate income tenants. I've been working with some of the tenants over at Pleasant View, and I just want to say when I first started working with them, the question was, they can't do that, right? They can't raise my rent 40 or 50%. And unfortunately, as you all know, the answer is yes, you can. And right now, although the governor's housing bill was an amazing bill that passed with lots of money, that's years down the road. And the question is, what are we going to do now when you have out-of-state investors? The same thing happened in Springfield with a very large company that bought 1,000 apartments and then also did a 40% rent increase. Asking tenants to sort of meet after 5 o'clock every day, after they're working all day, to try to figure out how to navigate this is not fair. And so I think the city has a real opportunity here to tell the legislature that we really believe that tenants should have some tools in the toolbox that are not just, have a second job to try to entice an owner to reduce rents. So I really strongly urge you to support this. These tenants have been amazing at doing what they can, and we're hoping that the city council will also add to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Liz Pluff. I'm your community social worker here in the public health department here at 50 Payson, and I am typically located in the basement. I am also the newly elected board representative for Hampshire County for the 3-county Continuum of Care, which is an organization dedicated to ending homelessness in Berkshire, Franklin, and Hampshire County. I don't actually feel like you need to hear from me because you've already heard from all of these wonderful people, but I did just want to say, as the community social worker, I receive calls from community members weekly, sometimes daily, regarding need for support around housing. Rents are increasing, evictions are increasing, housing instability and homelessness are ongoing challenges, and I think sometimes we fail to recognize that this is happening here in our community. So I just wanted to note these are growing challenges and concerns impacting individuals and families of all ages, and this resolution highlights the importance of protecting our tenants, stabilizing rents, and supporting community members, which is a responsibility that falls on all of us. So thank you for your work on this. Thank you for keeping it on the table. And thank you to everyone who has spoken before me in support of it. I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room before I go online? Okay, and I'm just going to go in order. It looks like Leslie Shar, you are the next speaker. And you're muted, it looks like.
Can you unmute?
I don't know if I can unmute. Let me try to unmute you. I cannot unmute you. Okay, I'm gonna try to figure it out, Leslie. We'll go to the next one. Donovan Lee.
Hello, my name is Donovan Lee, and I'm a resident of Easthampton. I just wanted to speak in support of the resolution for rent stabilization and to send the resolution to our representatives at the State House to pass their bills. I know multiple seniors in Easthampton that are currently being priced out of their rental situations due to increasingly large rent hikes like we've heard so many described earlier today. I'm also a builder that works in this area, and if my rent keeps getting hiked the way that it is, I'm not going to be able to afford to stay in Easthampton. So we really need to have some form of rent stabilization and, tenants being able to organize if you want, workers and seniors to be able to continue to live in this city. I'd also just like to say, we should also go back to the model of switching in between online and in-person commentary. It's a lot of disabled people use the virtual participation to be part of these meetings, and to just disregard them to the end like it's not important is pretty ableist. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see if I can.
I'm ready.
Oh, Leslie, yeah, go for it, Leslie.
I'm technologically challenged. Hello.
You got it.
My name is Leslie Shar, and I live, as you know, in the Pleasant View Apartments on Neshawanek Street, Precinct 3. But I need to say first, it's good to see Peg Conniff up again, and thank you for stepping up. Anyway, as some of you may recall, I was here a few weeks ago giving you my story and requesting that you ask
Rep. Gomez and Senator Vilas to support and push hard to get HD 2501 and SD 1084 on the books. That's the Rent Stabilization Act that we've been talking about. After I spoke to you, my city councilor, Tom Peake, contacted me and said he would be writing a proposed resolution for the council to consider. And I found out last week that Rep. Gomez had asked Connie Dunham to write one, and she and Tom are collaborating on it. And I want to thank you both for undertaking this. It goes without saying, I'm asking you to approve the resolution and forward it to the reps on Beacon Hill. You could give it to Homer tonight, he can hand carry it. Not all of us want to live in a house anymore. My husband and I are elderly. We can't live in our own house anymore and keep it up. But it's still important that we have a place to live and not have to worry about being priced out of it. The proposed bill would limit the amount of the increase we could expect, and it would give us peace of mind. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, Leslie. And it looks like next is Janelle. Is that right?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep. We can.
Okay, my name is Janelle. I live at 13 Louise Avenue, and I'm here in support of HD 2501 and SD 1084. I've lived in Easthampton for 2.5 years and in this area for 5. Without family support or generational wealth, a stroke of luck meant that my partner and me had the privilege of buying a house here in Easthampton in 2022. Before that, I had been a lifelong renter and imagined being a lifelong renter. And I'm proud to live here and have met incredible organizers, leaders, artists, and workers in this town. But I've also had many difficult conversations recently with people who were born and raised in Easthampton, yet are being priced out of their hometown and have been forced to move farther and farther away from the city center. I wholeheartedly support the resolutions in support of statewide efforts which would enable cities and towns across Massachusetts to stabilize rents. As someone with a background in housing studies and public health, I have studied the rise in homelessness. There has been an increase of 35% nationwide in just the last 3 years. If Massachusetts does not act to support tenants by restricting predatory corporations and landlords, we will face a similar and preventable crisis. We must care for all those who have made Easthampton what it is, including our elders and those working individuals and families who are burdened by housing costs. Thank you to all those who drafted support and spoke in support of HD 2501 and SD 1084, and thank you for taking on this important issue.
Thank you. Kayam.
Thank you, councilors. My name is Kyan General McQuaid, 8 Jones Drive. I sit on the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership and also coordinate the Easthampton Housing Coalition. I'm here tonight to speak in strong support of the resolution calling for local authority to enact rent stabilization and eviction protections, and I thank the councilors for bringing it forward. Over the past decade, we have seen rent in Easthampton skyrocket, with median rent rising by 21% in just the last 5 years, according to the Census ACS. This is pushing longtime residents out of our community. Nearly half of Easthampton renters are housing cost burdened, paying at least 30% of their income on rent, while they're also paying for the more expensive food, utilities, and other essentials due to inflation. Some are forced into unsafe or unstable housing situations, while others are forced to leave altogether because they simply can't afford to stay here. We have heard powerful stories from the Pleasant View residents of the Pleasant View apartments, recently facing the egregious rent hikes without many options for where to go. The data backs this up as well. As of February of this year, 3% of all residential properties in the city are owned by corporations or LLCs, and nearly half of those were purchased since 2020. So this is a very alarming trend that we need to address as a community. This resolution doesn't impose rent control. It just calls on the state to restore our ability to make local decisions that reflect the needs of our community. Cities and towns across Massachusetts are facing similar crises, and we deserve the right to choose policies that protect the vitality of our community. Shelter is a basic human need. Without bold statewide and local actions, more of our neighbors, seniors, working families, essential workers will be pushed out. Easthampton should be a place where people can put down roots and build families, not just an asset for investors looking to extract wealth from our residents. I urge the City Council to pass this resolution tonight and send a clear message to the legislature that Easthampton demands the right to protect the economic vitality of our community. Thank you again for considering such an important and needed action.
Thank you. And I believe that concludes public speak. Last chance? All right, let's close public speak. And who, the next item on our agenda is immediate attention to the resolution in support of rent stabilization. Who's going to take it? Councilor Denham, Peak, Smith? Who would like it? Councilor Denham?
Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you, Mr. President. We've heard a lot of individuals tonight who have been impacted by this, and I don't think my words can do justice to what has been said, but this was something that, a resolution that was brought forward by Councilor Jadzik, myself, Councilor Peak, and Councilor Smith. This is a growing concern amongst a number of our constituents and just the community at large in regards to the predatory increases in rent that are impacting our residents and forcing many of them to either take increases to their rent, or they are forced to leave our community. And as was articulated, some of those individuals have lived here their entire life, and they are being forced to move out of their community. But they've known their entire life. The other thing I think that is of particular importance to this, as has been articulated regarding Pleasant View Apartments, we have a lot of LLCs, private investors who are coming into the community and purchasing property. They have no connection to this community whatsoever, and they are creating not only instability, but displacement, and we have a responsibility to protect our residents. I know for myself, as someone who lived in a low-income situation, I often rented myself, and similarly, if I had not if I had not received a small a small benefactor from my mother, I wouldn't have been able to live in the house that we live in currently. And I often, as someone who works at UMass, my partner and I, we often provide rent-free housing to students who are experiencing homelessness. And I'm not saying by any means that other people have to do those things, et cetera, but this crisis is real for a lot of people, and we have a responsibility to address that. And I'm encouraging council tonight to allow this resolution to move forward so that we can send it on to the state, the House of Representatives, as well as to the Senate. I think that this is a crisis that is before us right now that we really need to get a handle on before it continues to just be out of reach.
And I think as long as no councilors have any objections to moving forward with this tonight, I'm fine with allowing this to move forward. Seeing none. Councilor Dunn.
Great. So this is the Easthampton City Council resolution in support of an act enabling cities and towns to stabilize rents and protect tenants. Over the last decade, the Easthampton City Council has borne witness to an explosive rise in housing costs. In an environment where demand for both owner-occupied and rental housing far outstrips supply, landlords have disproportionate market power over their tenants. As a result of this dynamic, many Easthampton renters have reported to this council that they have been victims of predatory rental market practices, which involve landlords exploiting tenants through unfair rental agreements, abrupt rent hikes, neglect of repairs, and unfair eviction tactics. All of these practices have led to financial hardship and housing instability for Easthampton's renters, have left many of our long-term renters displaced, and have put some Easthampton renters in the position of choosing rent over food and utilities. Whereas the Easthampton City Council is calling on the Commonwealth to pass HD 2501 and SD 1084, an act enabling cities and towns to stabilize rents and protect tenants, sponsored by Senators Patricia Jalen, Representative David Rogers, and Representative Samantha Montano, to repeal rent control preemptions, enabling cities to enact rent stabilization and just cause eviction protections for tenants while building in exemptions fit for the local context. And whereas, according to U.S. Census Bureau American Community Survey, ACS, estimates over 21 million renter households spent more than 30% of their income on housing costs in 2023, representing nearly half, 49.7% of the 42.5 million renter households in the United States for whom rent burden is calculated. And whereas a 2020 report published by the U.S. Government Accountability Office, GAO-20-433, found that every $100 increase in median rent is associated with a 9% increase in homelessness. And whereas, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, ACS estimates in Easthampton, median rent has increased by $209, 21%, between 2018 and 2023. And whereas in 2023, 26% of Easthampton households earned less than $25,000 a year, and 13%, 16%, and 17% of households are extremely low, very low, and low income, respectively, meaning that 46% of all households in Easthampton qualify for federal and state affordable housing programs based on household income. And whereas in 2023, 43% of Easthampton renters were housing cost burden, spending 30% or more of their income on housing cost, and 11% were severely cost burdened, paying 50% or more. And whereas rents in Easthampton are rising, causing the city to become increasingly unaffordable for its residents, including low and fixed income individuals, service and essential workers, working class households, as well as other marginalized members of the community, including but not limited to people with accessibility needs, LGBT+, people of the global majority, immigrants, and seniors, leading to housing displacement, lack of housing stability, and sometimes into unhoused situations, creating a growing affordability and renter crisis in the community. And whereas the population of Easthampton is aging, with 24% of Easthampton residents aged 65 or older in 2023, an increase of 5% from 2018. And the rising cost of living across the Commonwealth has been felt acutely in our community, especially for our low-income and senior populations. And whereas stable rental environments with familiar neighborhoods are essential conditions for informal, unpaid caregiving networks for older persons who wish to remain embedded within our community. And whereas predatory investors are increasingly buying properties in Easthampton in the hopes of profiting from the high-demand rental market, with 3% of residential properties being owned by corporations or LLCs as of February 2025, 46% of which are purchased since 2020. And whereas the loss of affordable housing in Easthampton is a crisis that deeply impacts the lives of our neighbors, colleagues, and friends, and whereas the housing market should provide much needed housing for the city, not to be used as an asset for outside investors to extract wealth from the Easthampton community, and whereas the goal of rent stabilization is to address a city's affordable housing crisis by setting the maximum amount that a landlord can raise rent every year, either a fair fixed percentage or tied to the rate of inflation. And whereas the current Massachusetts statute currently prohibits rent control, so that Easthampton cannot address this problem without legislative action on the state level. And therefore, be it resolved, the Easthampton City Council supports Bill HD 2501 and SD 1084, calling for the repeal of statewide rent control preemptions, allowing cities and towns to institute rent stabilization measures and implement tenant protections. And a copy of this resolution will be sent to State Representative Omar Gomez and State Senator John Nealis.
Is that a motion?
That was a motion.
And that's in the form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Councilor Kwasinski.
I heard the issues of folks who had predatory landlords come in, and I was appalled. This isn't the first time it's happened in Easthampton. Actually, I know that the rents were raised on Cottage Street in that community well beyond what they should have been raised. On Nashwanik Street, it's appalling. These were done to large landowners. These are not small apartment complexes of 8 units or less. They're large ones. The current bill before the legislature calls for units that are owner-occupied, 4 units and under, but they must be owner-occupied. I take a bit of pause. I'm a landlord. I have one 4-family house. Our rents are probably 30 to 40% below market. I know I'm not alone in having rents 25 to 40%, 30% below market. But these are real tenants, people who are in the building, and across Easthampton, that's the case, with low rents. What's going to happen with an impending rent control? Will landlords who want to renovate the unit someday in the future or have money to do certain repairs when the boiler breaks, are they going to go ahead to their tenants and now look at, I have to raise the rents to market? That's a horrible situation for people throughout the entire city, especially those who are in 4 units or less. So I have pause about doing a broad stroke across the board restriction. Then you see things like a president who puts a tariff on Canada of 25%, threatens going to 200%. What's going to happen to the cost of lumber? Canadians provide the lumber for the United States market. Anyone who's doing repairs or renovations or building new construction is going to be affected by that. If they're under a rent-controlled situation, or the situation is such that cost of living adjustments can be made, that makes it tough. They can't do the renovations, they can't do the repairs. I know in New York City there are tens of thousands of vacant units because there's rent control. Tens of thousands, and there's a housing crisis in New York City. But landlords can't make it work to do the renovations, and they're leaving the properties vacant. That doesn't help the housing market. Housing vouchers, I think, are a way to target those people who need the money most in order to live safely in the apartments that they have. So I'll be voting no to the resolution, not because I'm not against predatory predatory landlords, but because I wanted to have a fair system that's good for everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Peak.
So I think that when it comes to this, one thing that's important to remember is that like with all of our resolutions, passing them does not implement a policy. If we get very, very lucky, in my opinion, perhaps unlucky in other people's opinion, the best thing that could possibly happen is that this would pass through the state government, and then they would come back to us, and it would give us an opportunity to work on figuring out what the policy would be that would be most appropriate for Easthampton for addressing some of the concerns that Councilor Kwasinski brought up. I just want to say, regarding a lot of that, just a little bit about how I found myself at this place, because I am a professional economic researcher, and traditionally the economics field has been opposed to rent control. I think that we have reached a point where we need to reconsider that. When you look at the situation in the market right now, you can look at it fairly simply as supply and demand, right? There's a whole lot more people who would like to live in Easthampton than there are places for them to live, and so if you're a landlord, if you're some New York landlord buying up properties on Nashwanik Street, you can say, hey, the tenants there, maybe they can't afford $1,500 a month, but somebody can, right? Somebody can. So, and then there's more people out there who want to live here in Easthampton than there are places to live. So I'm gonna jack up these rents, and if these folks can't afford it, well, find someone who can. That's the consequence of having a lot more demand than there is supply. So there's a question that comes up, should we be getting involved in this market? We have been involved in this market. If you look at our 300 and something page zoning ordinance, right? What is that? It's us being involved in that market. It's us saying, here are the places that you can build, here are the places that you can't build. So you've got all these people willing to pay good money to live in Easthampton, and yet the houses aren't being built, housing units are not being built at the rate that's sufficient to house them all. Why is that? In part, it's because of the rules that we set and that our predecessors, many of whom are in the room right now, set. And so I think that that's just like a truth to it. It's like one of the reasons that there's lower supply than there is demand is because we have consciously set rules to restrict supply, sometimes for good reasons, aquifer protection, or sometimes people really care about the character of a certain neighborhood, or preserving a certain piece of wildlife. There's good reasons why sometimes you do want to restrict supply, but one of the consequences of that is it means that there's less units available on the market for people who want to live there, and it allows for the situation. Beyond that, frankly, this might be a little bit controversial to some people, we also increased demand, right? We made a lot of investments in this community to make it a more desirable place to live. I don't think that that was a wrong thing to do. I think it was the right thing to do. But one of the consequences of that is it does mean that there are more people who want to live here than there would have been if we had not taken those actions. If we had not built our beautiful new school, right, there would probably be less families wanting to send their kids, to have their kids educated in it, and there would be less competition for those markets. So what we're doing, these folks who are coming in, these predatory landlords, they're shooting fish in a barrel, and we built the barrel for them, right? And so now we're just in the situation where we need to figure out whether or not we're going to do something about it. Now, candidly, I am not optimistic that the State House will pass this bill, because as much as I appreciate the hard work of our state representative, I don't necessarily feel the way about a lot of his colleagues. So am I sure that this is going to work? No, it doesn't. But I do believe that we have a responsibility to try, right? To at least say to our state reps that we, through our public policy decisions, through the state's public policy decisions, through the federal government's public policy decisions, have created a market environment where demand massively outstrips supply. And that has led to our most vulnerable citizens, including a lot of the people who built this beautiful city, being badly hurt. I think we have a responsibility to try and fix this situation, which is why, despite me almost never ever getting involved in resolutions, I did get involved in this one. So that's all I got to say. Thank you for your time.
Any other councilors? Any other councilors? Councilor Dunham.
Yep, this is actually just a first step. So the councilors who worked on this are also going to be working on a call for the both the council and the mayor to work together to create an ad hoc committee to look at rent stabilization. So this is just the first, because more than anything, what we want is we want more input from the community to be involved in those conversations, so that hopefully we can get to additional actions to bring attention to this issue that is, as my colleague to the right very passionately said, right, we have created in many ways a dire situation for our own residents, and we need to fix that.
Councilor Connor.
So I also want to echo what Councilor Peak said so eloquently and passionately. I don't think I've ever seen you quite as excited about something. I agree that this is non-binding, and it's just a message that we're sending to the State House. But I think, and I agree, Connie, with what you said, Councilor Denham, that we need to work with the mayor. I think we need to do everything we can, take every tool from our toolbox to make it very uncomfortable for landlords to raise rents, to even buy properties here so that they can raise rents. I think we just need to make it very clear we're paying attention, we're watching, and we're going to do everything we can for the town not to let these predatory landlords take over.
Thank you.
Done.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. I would just say I think that my colleagues have said it very well, and I appreciate Councilor Kwasinski, your point of view, and I would encourage you to talk to Councilor Gomez and the other sponsors of this bill to have your concerns heard there around small landlords. But I think that this is a piece of a puzzle that we're currently working on. You know, I think if anybody that's interested in this issue should know that the Ordinance Committee is currently working on a total kind of look at zoning as it relates to affordable housing and creating a pretty significant change in the fish barrel. And so I think that's important to recognize that this is just one piece of multiple pieces that are being worked on. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we have all those pieces working in conjunction together so they're coherent and they make sense. And that being said, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any against or abstentions? And that's a no? No. We have one no. Motion passes. Thank you. And before we get to our other piece of business here, do any councilors have any communications that they would like to? Okay, see. Oh, yeah, Councilor Denham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to acknowledge that on Monday we finished our second round of the Municipal Leadership Academy, which was organized by Councilor Smith, myself, and Representative Gomez. We had 9 participants, all of whom stayed the whole 9 weeks, we got positive feedback at the end of people who were very appreciative of the experience. They hope that more people would participate in future municipal academies, but overall it was just a really positive experience for people to both understand how the city works, meet the directors of department heads, get an understanding of the challenges, the budget, everything that they are kind of going with or working with. And really it was an opportunity to humanize the employees of our city and for people to understand just the amount of work that our city employees do for the residents of this community. So overall, it was just a really positive experience.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we don't have any correspondence, so that brings us to President and Vice President Communications. And tonight is a special President and Vice President Communications. I think for me, there's a good chance I would not be here right now if it wasn't for the legendary clerk to the council sitting to my right. And I see that we have a room filled with people that might want to have something to say about this last meeting for our city council clerk, Barbara LeBombard. So I will yield my time. And I would... Wait till the end. We should wait till the end?
Just wait till the end.
If you would like... listen,
Just wait till the end.
we can do that. We can do that. So, sorry. I tried to get it done now, but again, I will yield to our...
Let's just do the rest.
Let's get it. We'll come back to this.
Still in charge.
Still in charge.
Still in charge.
Yeah, so, all right, so let's get through these because it is short. We do have a really kind of short rest of our agenda here, so we'll get right to it.
It won't be long.
Yeah, so let's get to reports from committees. Finance, Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met last week to discuss the PEG access thing that we voted on tonight. We're going to meet next week at 5:30 in conference room 1 to discuss an appropriation that I'll do a first reading of in a second. And I guess there's not much else to report on. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a first reading of this and set a public hearing for it for 6:15 in 2 weeks. So what would the
April 2nd.
April 2nd, cool. In these chambers. So I'll make this in the form of a motion. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $18,168.28 to be transferred from capital stabilization to be transferred to FY25 voting equipment. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose. The funding would be used to upgrade the city's voting equipment, ImageCast precinct tabulators, Gen 1 ICPs, to the next generation of tabulators, ICP2. The new equipment is faster than the current tabulators, and the purchase includes a year's warranty, training, and area coverage for the first election, that being the November 2025 city election.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
I just have a question.
Yeah, sure.
I'm assuming you're done with everything?
Yes.
Yep.
Just for kind of a housekeeping, do we have the dates for the finance meetings for the budget?
I have them. I don't have them in my head. I will send them to you.
Okay, great.
I thought I did, so apologies if I didn't.
Yeah, no, that would be great. And also, I think it'd be good to share that with the community. So if there's anyone who wants to participate, that would be great.
Sounds good. Public safety.
Public safety has not met since our last meeting. We will be meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock in conference room 1 downstairs. I would, however, like to request to move an item of new business to the Public Safety Committee, the request to review Daly Field Road traffic flow and surrounding streets.
Okay. That's in the form of motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, against or abstaining? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thus concludes.
Oh, thank you, Councilor Trail. Appointments, Councilor Smith.
Thank you. Appointments have not met since our last city council meeting, so we will be meeting next on Monday, the 31st at 6 p.m. in meeting room 1. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to move a few new mayoral appointments forward for our appointments to consider. So I'd like to make this in a form of a motion that we move Marianne Giza for the position of city clerk. And again, Marianne Giza for the position of clerk to the city council with a term expiration date for city clerk being April 1st, 2028, and the term expiration for the clerk to the city council as April 1st, 2027. And I would also like to move Marlene Mishansky to the Parks and Recreation Committee with a term expiration of 12/31/25, and also to the Charity Funds Committee with a term expiration of 12/31/27.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or against? Motion passes.
Okay.
Is that all?
That's it. That
Okay.
concludes.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Ordinance, Councilor Denham.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we actually have we've had a busy couple of weeks. So just to give an update on a couple of things. One, in terms of to amend Chapter 8 to add a new section 8-26, Easthampton Shrubbery Ordinance. That has been moved back to review of our attorney. After discussion with our Director of DPW and City Engineer, they made a couple of one small revision, and so that's gone back to the City Solicitor to address that. And so once we have that, we'll be able to move forward with that. Also, the council or the committee, in regards to the special municipal employee status, we voted 3-0 to assign special municipal employee status to all of our current committees, boards, commissions, etc. For those of you who are unfamiliar with special municipal employee status, essentially it is a status that is assigned by City Council as it relates to conflict of interest law GLC 268A for our members of boards, commissions, committees, etc. It's for unpaid part-time positions for employees who do not work more than 800 hours or haven't worked more than 800 hours in the preceding year, and it allows for these individuals to represent private parties that are not in conflict or not coincide with their various appointments, whereas city employees cannot represent third parties or private parties when dealing with the city. The special municipal employee status allows that when there's no conflict of interest there. And so in the form of a motion, I'd like to assign special municipal employee status to the following boards, committees, and positions: Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership, Agricultural Commission, Aquifer Protection Committee, Barnes Aquifer Committee, Board of Assessors, Board of Health, Board of Public Works, Board of Registrars of Voters, the burial agent, caretakers of soldiers and sailors' graves, Charity Funds Income Distribution Committee, Commission on Disability, Community Preservation Act Committee, Community Relations Committee, Conservation Commission, Contributory Retirement Board, Council on Aging, Easthampton City Arts, ECA Grant Committee, Economic Development and Industrial Commission, Electrical Inspector, Energy Advisory Committee, Historical Commission, Housing Authority, Licensing Board, Main Street Cemetery Commission, Manhan Rail Trail Committee, Nashawanek Pond Committee, Parks and Recreation Commission, Planning Board, Plumbing and Gas Inspector, School Building, well, that doesn't either. Sealer of Weights and Measures, Telecommunications Advisory Committee, Tree Warden, Veterans Council, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Noes? Motion passes.
Great, thank you, Mr. President.
Yep.
Just as the request for temporary moratorium on use of sewage, sludge, fertilizer in Easthampton. This has been an ongoing conversation. We are waiting for a statement to come from our Agricultural Commission. They did meet to discuss this, and so we're just waiting for them to put out kind of their perspective on this so that we can move forward with that. We did have a meeting regarding the review of Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership zoning ordinance recommendations. We just started that process. We had a good conversation. We have we voted on nothing right now, but we are kind of getting into that conversation. Our next meeting for that conversation, and only that conversation, that conversation and other items, will be April 1st, 6 p.m. And we also the request to review zoning ordinance amendments regarding short-term rentals. Also had a very good conversation with, particularly with landlords, homeowners, etc., to go over the proposals that had been presented. Got a lot of input from individuals. I had the opportunity to meet with the members of the planning department. We made some amendments to that, which we will present back to the committee. Unfortunately, I did that individually because of quorum. We couldn't all meet with them at the same time, so we just went over a few simple changes to bring that forward to the rest of the group. And additionally, I'll be meeting on Saturday with some homeowners of the landlords who are interested in, again, in expressing some of their concerns and having a dialogue with them. So that will also be happening, that I'll be doing. But our next meeting regarding short-term rentals will be March 25th from 5 to 7 p.m. And we will have a conversation there about those things. And that's everything that our committee has to offer council this evening.
Just one, I think it's important to note that the mayor and the city have suspended the cease and desist letters. And I think that meeting probably was a catalyst for that in some way.
Yes, I think that was helpful.
Yes. Okay, and that concludes?
Yep.
So property, Councilor Kwasinski, since you're the senior member of that committee.
Well, we've added a new member, so thank you very much, Mr. President. And we'd like to schedule an organizational meeting for next Thursday at 5 p.m. I do expect it to be a brief meeting. It won't last very long. We have some other events that evening that we definitely need to attend to, I think. Somebody's official last day, I think. So that'll be the time for the property meeting, and we may set up a schedule on how we want to deal with any items that are on the agenda at that time or not, but that's a possible topic. That concludes property and
rules and government
relations. We have the home rule charter amendment request for the mayoral compensation and how to time when the council works on that subject. So we're now going back a little bit with the attorney with a proposal that we've given to the attorney and making some changes. We'll probably meet again to finalize that and bring it to the committee. That concludes.
Great, thank you. And we don't have any old or pending business, so that brings us back to President, Vice President Communications. I, again, yield my time. So please step to the podium. Oh, you want to start? Yeah. Oh, never mind. I'm going to yield to Barbara. Barbara, we're going to start with you. All right.
Hopefully. State your name and address.
All right. Okay, so I do have some things to say, and hopefully it's not too long or boring, and I hope I can make it through. So I've written it down. So to begin with, no one in high school or college thinks, I want to be a town or city clerk when I grow up. Nobody. Years ago at a conference, a fellow clerk called being a town clerk the accidental profession. And it is the absolute truth, and it's what happened to me. So here's the story of my journey in the accidental profession. It all began on January 18th, 1983. After moving from New York State in 1981, and after a not so wonderful year as a newspaper reporter in Holyoke, Phil Campbell hired me as his assistant, and I moved, as I've often said, from one side of the counter to the other. Phil got me situated with a brand new IBM Selectric typewriter in our office at the town hall. At that time, Easthampton had a 3-member board of selectmen and a representative town meeting. We counted ballots by hand, and Phil and I were paid, respectively, $400 and $100 a year to handle the selectmen's meetings. In 1986, we changed forms of government to a 5-member board of selectmen, town administrator, and still representative town meeting. During those years, there were times when Phil took on other responsibilities that meant he wasn't always in the office. He served as acting town administrator and then was president of the Mass Town Clerks Association. When he left Easthampton for other employment in 1994, I easily moved up to the position of town clerk, being elected for the one and only time in 1995. I was appointed after that. It was during that time, we had one town meeting on October 18th, 1995, that brought in big changes for me. Money was voted to purchase the rail bed to build the Manhan Rail Trail, and funding was approved to purchase optical scan voting equipment. Both of those votes made big changes in my life that I'm still thankful for, and I'm still thankful for town meeting support some 31 years later. Going forward from 1995, things really began changing in Easthampton. It was in 1996 that voters approved a new home rule charter creating a mayor and a town council, a city form of government. As the new city, known as the town of Easthampton. Is Morgan Mitchell still here? As the new city, we had to start things from scratch, developing new processes for everything, many of which remain in place today. It was by special act in 1997 that our name was changed from a town to a city. The years have flown by. I've worked at and administered 100 elections. I've worked with 14 town/city councils, 3 mayors, and have performed 770 weddings as a justice of the peace. At least one of those couples is sitting right there, and the other one is not here at the meeting tonight, but we moved offices from the town hall to 50 Payson Avenue. We built a new public safety complex, a new high school, and a new elementary and middle school. We've gone from hand counting ballots until the wee hours of the morning to optical scan voting equipment and being one of only 2 Massachusetts communities that use ranked choice voting. I won't say anything more about that. From flipping through paper voting lists at the polls to electronic check-in poll pads. Thank you, Peg, you're great on those.
Thank you.
From elections being mostly a one-day event to elections that last for a month with by-mail voting, early voting in person, advanced processing of ballots, and finally election day. To being there in 2004 when Massachusetts became the first state to allow same-sex marriages. From birth and death certificates being typed onto forms to statewide computer generation. From an IBM Selectric typewriter to 3 computer screens on my desk. Through COVID and the endless Zoom council meetings to hybrid meetings. So many, many changes over 42 plus years. But Easthampton has been very good to me. I've made many friends and have worked with all sorts of people over the years. I've come to know where all the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. I leave as the longest serving clerk in the history of Easthampton as the longest currently serving employee in the city. How can that be? There have been times of stress for sure. I'm ready to forget 2020 and the 5 elections we held that year with by-mail voting for the first time. But overall, it's always been an adventure. Things are always changing depending on the year and the time of the year. I think overall, though, it's been the people and those challenges that have made the years go by so quickly. Elections are tough, and I'm always glad when election day is over and done with. But then again, they are also challenging in a good way and ultimately very rewarding. I have always felt honored to have played a part in democracy in action. There are so many people I owe my success to, too many to name, but please know you are all important to me. A few, however, stand out. First, to Phil Campbell. Thank you for seeing my potential and for bringing me on board as your assistant. To Mary Ann, who has quietly worked aside me for almost 31 years, I wish you the best of luck as you step into my shoes. To all my faithful election workers, especially to those who I've called upon and sometimes begged to help with early voting, mailing of ballots, and advanced ballot processing. I couldn't have done elections without your willingness to help. To all my fellow employees over the years, and boy, have I seen a lot come and go. To Mike, Karen, and Nicole, my 3 mayors, who have, for the most part, let me do my own thing, and have supported me when I've had some projects in mind, from purchasing new voting equipment, as on tonight's agenda, to archives management. To all the city councilors I've worked with, and I'm so happy to see so many of you, some who have been more challenging than others, but all who have shown vision and love for their community. Saying that, I won't miss the long meetings, and I hope to never take minutes again. To my huge community of fellow city and town clerks across the state, I wouldn't be where I am today without you all. Without a doubt, one of the highlights of my career was being chosen as the 2024 Massachusetts Clerk of the Year. There are so many other clerks who are worthy of this award, and I was humbled and very honored to have been chosen to receive it. And finally, to my husband, Rich, who is right. I'm all business all the time. Maybe not always meant as a compliment, but oh so very true. I know you'll be glad to not have to always listen to me talk shop about elections and early voting and advanced processing and dog licenses and city council meetings, to name a few. Thank you for putting up with my work obsession all these years. I don't know what my next adventure will be, but I doubt I'll ever be that far away. I may not be an Easthampton native, but after 42 years, I think I'm close. Thank you, everyone, for your support, your cooperation, and your friendship. I will miss you all each day at 50 Payson, but I'm not disappearing, and I hope to see you soon. The first time being next Thursday night, 5 o'clock, Abandoned Building Brewery. Please stop by and say hi. Thank you.
And so, Omar, are you ready? Okay.
Dan Riss, former city councilor. I hope I'm not on the challenged councilor list.
No, I think he left.
We know who you're talking about.
Being a councilor for 27 years, I think I can attest to the incredible help Barbara has been to every councilor, and especially council leadership. Barb is far from just a clerk. It would be easy to find the job and limit it to the mundane of city business and council paperwork. Not Barbara. She made it clear from the very beginning that she had to know how our new government works. She studied our charter in and out, and in both of the charter review committees I led, her contributions were extra insightful and enormously helpful. Barbara made a point of knowing our ordinances and at the very least, where to find the answer when we asked. I marveled at the speed at which she was able to respond to questions, especially finding zoning answers and procedures. And with the open meeting law directing our meetings, she stayed on top of it, knowing the law and advising on its intricacies. As president, and I believe all our presidents can safely say that without Barbara, we'd all be lost in the swamp and complexities of city government crying out for guidance. We all knew Barbara could give us that answer or advice. Underpaid as most government staff are in small cities, she still worked tirelessly to help us all. Alas, I fear my words seriously understate the eloquence of Barbara's commitment to moving Easthampton forward. Enjoy retirement. You've earned it.
Thanks, Dan.
And I would invite anybody else that would like to speak to come to the podium. I didn't want to go first. See how not difficult you are, Dan?
Well, Barb, I was going to save this till the end of the month, but I'll just give you a piece of what I think I'm going to have to talk more about. I met you when you were a reporter.
Yep.
And I was on a volunteer commission, probably the Conservation Commission. And I'm just so pleased to have known you for all that time. And you've been wonderful to work with. And I want to say that I appreciate the City Council's decision to replace Barbara, to provide Sue with the opportunity to take Barbara's position. I've known 5 clerks every time, the system took over, from Janik to Dragon to Campbell to Rich LaBombard and out of these. So I appreciate that thought. I've always believed that the best thing any organization can do is to promote from within. And I've not seen a lot of that here in Easthampton, and I'm happy to see it tonight. See you on Thursday.
I wasn't going to do this. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Phil Campbell, the ghost that she spoke about. Barbara and I, we were not employer and employee. We were colleagues, friends. We shared everything. And I've been trying my darndest to think if we ever had a disagreement in the 10 years we worked together, and we haven't. She's one of a kind. I will say to you that I did move on. Those who don't know, I did move on to government, larger government outside of DC. And in my 30 years there, I went through 5 assistant clerks. So that tells you something about Barbara. So I'm pleased to be able to say that my hometown of Easthampton, that is still my hometown, I'm glad to say that I was part of having her there. And I will go one step further, because Mary Ann also worked for me as a part-time person. And then when I left to move on to the bigger world, Barbara kept her on. So I think between, not counting my 30 years we were gone, but there's just under 100 years between the 3 of us having served the town of Easthampton. And in my retirement, I left DC. Couldn't quite come back to Easthampton, guys, because I'd end up being sitting there, and I don't want to do that. So, but I do work for the election department in my little hometown, new hometown in Connecticut, and was recently appointed to the retirement board in Easthampton. So I guess I'm back. So, Barbara, I love you dearly. Congratulations to you. Best of luck, Mary Ann. You have 2 great people. I don't know, one great person, another one. Just follow the yellow brick road, okay? Thank you.
Barbara. I was a city council meeting member, elected for the very first election when we became a town known as. But I also worked with Barbara when I was a town meeting member before I was elected to the city council. So we go back. But the one important thing that I want to say here tonight is thank you, Barbara, because for the longest time, it was just me and you and the guys. And it was great. It was fine. I never had a problem with any of the guys. They can all attest to that. But I always had a kinship with Barbara, and I want to say thank you. And you were always the person that we could always go to. I always had the answer. And if you didn't, you were willing to go the extra length to help us find those answers. So congratulations. Welcome to the retirement club. We can get together for coffee once a month and talk about the future, because we have lots of years left. Congratulations, Barbara.
There he is.
Good evening, Morgan Mitchell, another former city councilor, and that's what we should all be, former. I just want to tell one quick story about Barbara and what you're losing. Very first election, Barbara. Get the final vote in. The count is that I came in as the last at-large councilor by just about 25 votes. We did a recount. She ran it again, checking it. It was down to about 12. The guy I beat said, I'm going to do a recount. I'm asking for one. Barbara says, I don't make mistakes. The count is correct. He said, all right, Barbara, no problem. And that's how I got in. Thank you, Barbara. I'm not sure how many went underneath the table, but I'm very happy about it. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Ed Sparko, and I used to sit at that table too, back from 96, but the thing is that I'm not going to be a politician today. I'm not going to talk long. Congratulations, Barbara.
Talks are getting shorter and shorter as it gets later and later. There's so much already been said, so there's not much more to add. I'm so glad you talked a little about your resume, because the thing about everything you did outstanding. I mean, even as far as your recognition from the city, I mean, from the state clerks, it's just such an exemplary career. I'm so proud to have worked with you, and I know at least one person who is already working on stacking you for our board, so I'm sure there'll be a big demand. Thank you again, Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Mark.
First, I want to start saying thank you. Why thank you? 2 occasions. The first meeting, as a counselor, I was so nervous. And my first meeting as a council president, I was really nervous. And I feel really, really comfortable having you next to me. And make that job much easier. Thank you for everything you did for the council. Thank you for everything you did for me. Because I would say maybe that's one of the reasons that today I'm a state rep. I gained confidence having you next to me. Don't feel afraid to ask. And you are part of what you create. This is part of it. You guys are losing not just a great clerk, you're losing a great person. And I hope, Barbara, I love coffee. I hope you invite me to coffee one day, because I want to hear so many stories about what happened in 41 years here in this building. What?
Since you got to be retired.
So on behalf of the House of Representatives and someone else, because I have to give it a credit to the mayor, she contacted our office to reach out to the Secretary of State. And as soon we contact the Secretary of State, our office talked to him, and he do a citation. They're really surprised that you're being retired, because they love you. It's 351 communities in Massachusetts, and they know Barbara. Definitely they know Barbara. So I'm going to read my citation, and you're going to let Veronica from my office to read the citation from the Secretary of State, because I think, this one is great, but that one is awesome. So here it is. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a House of Representatives, be it hereby note to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offer its sincere congratulations to Barbara LaBomba in recognition of your 41 years of dedicated and incredible service to the Easthampton City Clerk. The entire membership extend its very best wishes and express the hope for future good fortune and continued success in our endeavors. This being signed by the Speaker of the House, Ronald Mariano, and myself. I use Veronica to read the Secretary of State.
And if you'll indulge me a little bit, Omar already stole my story. But when I did go to the Secretary of State's office, they said, where are you from? And I said, Representative Gomez's office. And they went, oh, the Hampshire district. Who's retiring? Not Barbara. And I was like, yes. So as Omar said, out of 351 clerks, Barbara, you are noticed and recognized, and your dedication, professionalism, and warmth have left an impression in Easthampton, but also throughout the whole state. Thank you. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth. It is with great pride and appreciation that I, William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth, do hereby congratulate Barbara Lombard in recognition of your 41 years of dedicated and incredible service as the Easthampton City Clerk. I also extend my most sincere wishes for the future, good fortune, and continuing success in all endeavors given this 31st day of March 2025. at the State House, Boston, Massachusetts, by William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth. Congratulations.
You can go around front.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody from the front table? Councilor Kwasinski?
Thank you, Mr. President. It isn't every day you get this opportunity. In fact, out of everyone here, no one's had this opportunity with you. My gosh, you've been here so darn long. Go home and retire and enjoy your life, please. We want you to enjoy it. Barbara Rich LeBombard, a person who dedicated themselves to excellence, whose calm and even-handed manner guided us and assisted us each and every time for each and every one of us. Your unflailing and unflappable manner, adapted to each of our personalities, you made us better. You made us stronger. You're the consummate professional. As a symbol of our appreciation, we'd like to share with you a symbol of our community. Barbara had requested no plaques, please. Please. Yet we wanted to share with you a symbol of our city. Do we give her a gavel? Here's an image for your walls. We hope that over time, as you see this symbol and you'll reflect on the ways you contributed to your community. Because there isn't a day you haven't contributed to Easthampton, to the people of Easthampton, to those who came to your office for help. You've given us the best, and because you were here, we're a better place. So here's to a career well done. Barbara, would you step around front, please?
Fourth screen.
Bigger screen. It's an IBM.
This is a symbol of our community, and we hope you'll think of it and think of the things you've done for us all as you look at it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Representing the past and all the things you've done. Thank you.
Very nice. Councilor Denham, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I just want to be brief. I only had the pleasure of working with Barbara for 3 years. Also, the only woman on council at that time working, so I often looked to Barbara for guidance, support, and like everyone has said, the speed at which you did things, the knowledge at which you brought, the support that you gave. One thing that stood out to me more than anything, and I can't speak to, all business, but what I did see was a whole lot of integrity, and I appreciated that a lot. And I think sometimes it's really hard in this when you're trying to please a lot of people, but you treated everybody fairly, and you did it, like I said, with a whole lot of integrity, and I really have a lot of appreciation for you and what you brought to your work.
Councilor Coniff.
I have no prepared statement, so you'll be happy about that because it'll be short. But somebody mentioned earlier about COVID and having to deal with the council, and I was unfortunate to be the president at that time. And I don't know how any of us could have gotten through that as a council, as a person who was living through that. You were the steady hand. And to this day, if I have a question, you can practically go to the file and go, it's right here, within like 2 minutes. And I appreciate that you made my job so much easier, because it was very difficult, and you made it pleasant for a while. And I left. But I also wanted to say that as a duly retired person, never say never, because things change and you may come back. We don't know. But I love you. I think you have done a phenomenal job. And I could not have been more grateful to have worked with you during my tenure here. Thank you.
Thank you, Peg. Thank you. Councilor Peak.
I went back and forth about saying something about it. You brought up all of the different things of the ranked choice voting thing, and it reminded me of something that I told Kelsey, my wife, a little while back. My wife, who you married us, as you mentioned. So that I mentioned to her a story about that situation, and I wanted to relay that when we started that, me and some other people started this push of saying, let's get a local option thing and get ranked choice voting in Easthampton. You were opposed to it from day one, and for reasons that make so much sense, because your job is to administer elections, and I was just going to make your job a little bit harder. And I thought, and I still think, that there's reasons for that are good, and that at the end of the day, it's a good thing that we did it. But there's just no getting around the fact that the implementation will fall to your office with very little, additional resources, and that was going to be hard. And I think that through the whole thing of implementing it after it passed, during COVID, on Zoom in the evenings, working on this implementation committee, I said something to Kelsey, which is that I've never been in a meeting with somebody who I could just tell just wanted to strangle me. And yet, that I couldn't, that meeting, I came out of it, every single one, admiring and respecting you more despite that fact. And I'm in plenty of meetings where people, I'm pretty sure, want to strangle me, but most of them I come out liking that person less. That was never the case. I always more, because just your professionalism and your thoughtfulness and your patience with us, it was just astounding, and it never stopped astounding me. So I'm going to miss you so much as our clerk, but just thank you for everything you've done for me and for this council over all of these years. That I don't even know where I would really start.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Any other councilors? Okay. You want to share something really quick?
I just wanted to, geez, look at that go.
It's okay.
I just wanted to share.
Barbara's last day, too.
There is a photograph here of Barbara from 1996. That will be available on that table over here, along with some refreshments that would be brought out shortly. So I wanted to be sure everyone who came knew about that, and you're welcome to join in. Please do.
Okay, and I need to say, because I started this whole thing off saying that I probably would not be here without Barbara, and that is so multi-layered, because, when I was looking for a place to live 27 years ago, one of the things that drew me to Easthampton was the bike path, and that was something that you had put so much time and effort into helping make happen and supporting over the years. But then there was me as like a kid. I feel like I was a little kid when I first started on the city council, and I had someone there that was kind and supportive and that kind of walked me through how things worked, and that was amazing. I mean, you were able to handle like how many counselors have come through the chambers, whether it was at the White Brook Middle School music room or here. I mean, you were able to manage all of us, and that's a testament in itself. But the other piece of that was going out and getting signatures. You were on top of me. I think there were some times I might have. I mean, I've submitted papers 11 times, I think, to you, and there was some times when I gave them to you like on the last day. And more than once, and you still certified them. And again, I would not be here without you. And so, I think that as I stepped into the role of president, I felt like I stepped into a tornado. It was, like Peg, I think, like we might have, you probably had a little harder. But I mean, mine was crazy too, and I'll give you that. And I never felt alone. I always felt supported, and I was like, there's no way Barbara's gonna answer this email right now. And sure enough, it didn't matter. Because whether it was Sunday at like 11 o'clock at night, I would get a response. And I think that's a testament to maybe the all business piece, but it's more than all business. There's a human component, a relationship, your ability to interact with people interpersonally and like understand, listen, and support. And it's been over this last 21 years, it's been such an amazing example for me to see as not just a clerk, but as someone who I would consider to be, a shadow counselor who is just like operating the guide on the side. And how many, I swear to God, I saw you go like this to about 100 different presidents. And if you were president, you know what I'm talking about. So I think you're going to be sorely missed. But I really hope that you and Rich get to do some amazing things now that you're not tethered here. So we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. I think that we could probably entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. We have to sign. Oh, and we're gonna sign.